What's happening, guys? I wanted to show you today my new Monaco DLX. This is a pedal boat that I purchased for my rental fleet. Pelican was actually one of the innovators of the pedal boat. They've been making these types of vessels for a long time. Right now, I'm going to try to pedal this thing by myself. Let's give it a shot. Like I said, these boats have always had a cool factor in my mind, and I just had to have one. One of the really cool things about it is you can fit 2 adults and up to 3 kids, or what is the specs on this thing? 5 persons, 695 pounds. That's amazing, because a lot of times people come with kids, and right now I've got 1 tandem, and then I have a roundabout that I can rent to more than 1 person. But that was it for a long time. So it was one of the main reasons why I got this, is because it will handle multiple people. The thing about this, though, is the boat was designed for calm lakes or bodies of water where there isn't a lot of tidal movement, and I'm living on a very big river. If you were to come out here all day long and you wanted to go down there and see the trestle or go around the main loop here in the river or see the broken bridge or Goat Island and just spend the whole day out here, this could be a heck of a lot of exercise. So I think I'm going to have to do some slight modifications to this boat to make it a little more user-friendly. Well, upon close inspection I saw that this aluminum tube is crimped onto this cap, so it would have to be destroyed in order to be removed. So, let's go ahead and destroy it. What's that? This was the point of no return. I did not intend to reassemble any of these parts. The big paddle wheel probably could have come apart a little bit easier if I had unbolted it, but I tend to be a little bit stubborn. Alright, there's a better way. Case in point. That thing's built for a lifetime. Or a few days in my presence. These little leftover rudder parts here, we're going to make nice little caps. They were the same color and the right size to fill the hole where the pedals used to be. A little super glue would hold them in place for now. Later on I would go in and waterproof them and secure them a little better. But more about that in a minute. For now, I had another occasion to rise to. Cutting this thing off. And it proved to be a lot of work. But I knew it would be worth it. With no need for a rudder handle, I was going to have to plug that hole up, so I cut a template out of some cardboard that I happen to have laying around. Not to mention some more starboard. God, I love this place. And I figured just plain black starboard wasn't going to look good enough, so I started working on an accent. After all, we're not animals. That looks nicer. Of course you know how to make it look nice. Speaking of which, back here, I no longer need the second hatch, but I think it would look better if it was there. So let's cut this thing in half and make it fit. It was too thick as it was, and I only needed a portion of it. Would make fitting it a little bit easier. Make this thing too good, Pelican. But these two halves were kind of like welded together. It was amazing how sturdy this little piece of plastic was. Once I had that fit, everything was made, so it was time to glue things together. I couldn't think of anything better than 5200. The first thing was the hole up front. I screwed it down so it became nice and secure, and then I covered the screws with this little accent piece. And I finished it off with a Scotty mount. Then it was off to the back to glue down the transom. I slathered on a lot of 5200 and set this thing on the most sturdy part of the boat. Then I glued on the gussets, the outside ones first. Those got a bunch of screws, both on the side and the back. Then I screwed the whole assembly to the boat. I used a whole bunch of screws too. I did not want this thing to go anywhere. And then I covered those screws on the inside with the second gusset. A minimal number of screws held them in place. And all of the screws that were on the back I covered up with 5 layers of starboard. 4 thick and 1 thin, Little by little, this was becoming a signature series boat for me. Get it? Clamping everything together, and then a few big screws to hold the whole assembly down tight. And structurally, it was just about done. There was just a few things left. This metal transom cover. And the white decorative pieces that would hide the cut ends of all the starboard layers. So not only was it structurally done, but now it was also looking good too. I spared no detail. I bet the designers at Pelican would be happy to see that I even took the time to cover the little area where the rub rail comes together. I even paid attention to other details, like what if I needed to paddle this boat? I needed a paddle holder. And what if I fished from this boat? I would need a rod holder. I happen to have some left over from a previous project. And then of course if I was going to be fishing, I was going to need a place to put my stuff. I couldn't just have it flopping around all over the place. Here at the roundabout shop we had some of these tackle webs, I think they're called, laying around. So I changed the size a little bit and then screwed them to the boat. One on either side up front. And this way I would have plenty of room for stuff like a Plano box. That's much nicer. Comfort would be nice too. But this throwable wasn't going to look that nice. So I cut it apart and I used the foam inside to make some cushions. I've done this before. You just need a backer and the foam and some material to cover it with. Wrap it all up nice, and the next thing you know, you've got yourself a cushion. Screw that to the seat back, and this was going to be a lot more comfortable than the hard back plastic seats. After all, I tend to spend a lot of time on the water. Yeah, that's better. Now it was time to think about a battery. If I was going to have one of these on the boat, I would need a place for it. The second half of that hatch cover that I cut apart might actually do. I had to make the hole bigger. The first hole was there because I had to cut the thing apart, because like I said, it was welded together. Then I went over here and I got some starboard and proceeded to make a box for it. This part was rather easy and fun, but it took a lot of test fitting. And I had to dig deep into the starboard stash. Battery cover was starting to come together. So far it fit pretty good. Then I needed a place to put the wires. Then I needed a cover for it. And some little gussets to strengthen everything up. After all, I could imagine crawling over this thing to get to the back seats. These little nylon hinges would make wiring the battery easy. And to make it easy on the eyes, and on anybody crawling on top of it, I figured I'd add another cushion. The next thing in my little bank of tricks, I got some screws and attached what Pelican likes to call rocket launchers. These little pieces of plastic turn that indent into a rod holder. This way, if you're sitting up front, you have a place to put your rod and reel. As I continued turning this Pelican boat into my own, I decided I was going to need a place for cameras. After all, I have to document this stuff. With the transom in place and no handle, I needed 2 straps instead of 1. I had straps laying around, I sewed them together, and as they say in Brooklyn, bada bing. And oh yeah, before I forget, the places where the pedals went through needed to be plugged up and waterproofed. By putting a lot of 5200 in there, it grabbed those caps that I superglued in earlier and made everything super watertight. Next up front, where the paddle wheel used to be, I decided to put some starboard and a mount. This was a ball mount. The mount was provided by my friends at Scotty. Upon which I attached my custom DIY iPad holder. I had a life-proof case for my iPad, so I wouldn't have to worry about it getting wet. And this way I'd have something to listen to while I was out there. Next were a few simple things, like cleats so I could tie the boat off, and some nod skid so I wouldn't fall off. At this point, I couldn't picture needing much else. Well, there's nothing left but for me to put this in the water and give it a shot with the new propulsion. For this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this trolling motor, which has a remote box where you can steer and go forward and backwards right from here. Okay, today I got my friend Richie. He's gonna help me test out this boat. I am gonna get in like this. Oh, okay, come on. All right. I figured to do a proper test, I should have at least two adults. Well, I guess in the eyes of the law, we're adults. Let's see, I can steer that. Yeah, buddy. All right. Forward. That has 5 speeds forward. Wow. That's pretty cool. And now we got all this leg room right here. Look at that. This is pretty cool. This thing moves along pretty good, huh, Rich?
It's not bad at all. It sure beats pedaling it.
Nice. Let's see if we can get a little music going, yeah?
Let me see.
Yes, sir. Life is but a dream. But I tell you what, this might be fine for people who are going to rent kayaks. But for me personally, I think I might want to do something a little more exciting. I'm going to head it back to the dock because I've got something in my brain. As we headed back, my mind was exploding with ideas. I could picture fishing from this thing and going a little bit faster. Even though we were scooting along pretty good. I had some delusions of grandeur. Well, they were delusions at this point. Everybody else seemed like they were pretty excited about seeing me make this happen. Including my friend Todd. What do you think, Todd? First thing to do was to get the electric motor off of the boat. That included the nice cover and the battery. Next, my Coleman 5-horse gas motor. This wonderful little outboard was probably going to push this boat a little bit quicker than that 55-pound thrust rolling motor. Needless to say, I was a little excited about seeing whether or not this would work. All right, we're off. So far it's working. Let's try to goose it a little bit. Whoa. All right. I'm going to sit right in the center. That's actually pretty comfortable. We'll see if it works. Whoa. I got to sit way up front. With the boat ballasted correctly, it moved along the water pretty fast. That's a lot faster than this boat's meant to go. Let's head back and try to go into the sun, shall we? But I still wasn't sure if I had it on plane or not. When I finally did get it on plane, it would move a little bit faster, but not without some problems. Oh boy. If the propeller's coming up out of the water, see, I was worried about that. That transom's a little too high and the shaft is too low. That means the propeller's coming up out of the water and it's going to cavitate and slow down like that. Well, I think there's something we can do about that too. I headed back to the dock, and I was just about done for the day. The sun was getting low, and I was pretty tired. I would tackle this new problem tomorrow. The next morning was rainy and cold, and I decided to work on a bracket that would help lower the motor by about 5 inches. It was kind of like a temporary fix just to see if it would work, but it had to be very strong. What's that? 5200? Well, once you open it. If this thing fell apart, I could potentially lose the motor, so I built it plenty strong. The starboard helped keep the wood together, so it was functional. It didn't just look good. Although, you know, even though it was temporary, I had to add little accents. Like I said, it's a curse. I held on these little blue accents with some high strength 90. Quite possibly my favorite glue. Then it was time to attach this thing to the boat. For that, I was going to use some very big bolts. Again, I did not want this thing to come apart. A few extra screws, and it would support my weight, which is a lot more force than that little motor could probably produce. Next thing was to see if I can get my hand in there to tighten the tie downs, or whatever you call them things. It was tight, but I managed. Also, I was happy to see that the tiller handle cleared the original transom that I built. Let's do this. One last obstacle. You can see here the extension handle is hitting the bimini straps in the current situation, so I'm going to change the situation. That was easy enough to fix by adding a couple pad eyes just over the seats. Okay, one of the last things that I want to do is take this piece and put it on the bottom there, and that will help divert the water from going up through there, because I actually just did a test run and it was scooping water up and it was splashing over the motor. So I'm going to drill this piece on and then we'll do a test on camera. Alright, that ought to work better. Finally, it was time to see if I could consistently get this boat on a plane.
Bon voyage! This is a pretty ridiculous setup. She moves pretty good, like this. But I barely have the throttle open. Let's see what happens when I twist it a little bit. Well, that motor's digging a little bit. Maybe if I sit forward. Better.
It felt like this boat was finally starting to get up on top of the water. You could hear the pitch in the motor change. You could feel it go a little bit faster. Although it wasn't the most comfortable thing to drive, it certainly was a lot of fun. Here on my portable GPS, you can see I was hitting about 10 miles an hour. It felt like I was doing 50. I'd call that a success. Now if I took this boat out by myself, I'd be able to get around no matter what the tide was doing on this big river. Considering how well the 5-horse motor works on my Bass Raider, I'm not certain that I'm really going to use it on the Monaco too often in the future. but it has been an extremely interesting and fun build. It was very surprising to learn how ballasting the boat with a little weight up front or in the back would make a difference on how it drives. Not to mention the fact that a few inches up or down with the motor made a big difference whether or not the propeller would come out of the water. So I guess it's not only been fun, but it's been very educational too. I'm glad I was brave enough to tear into this boat and have a little fun with it. Although I must say it was kind of fun just with the paddles. I might have to get myself another one of these and leave it stock.
Well, I gotta say it's a lot of fun, but it's not really practical. Plus, I built a shift handle and put trim tabs on this boat, so I might just call it quits for now. Hopefully you guys enjoy this type of footage, and like I said, this is gonna have at least an electric motor on it, and I'll be renting it to folks at my place, Zoffingers, here in Ruskin, Florida. Look me up at zoffingers.com, and if you like these types of videos, then tell your friends and make sure you're subscribed, because this is almost certainly not going to be the last stupid thing that I do. Thank you for watching, everybody.